afternoon. I'm not Bill Mitchell, I can tell you that right now. He sends his regards. The president is not feeling well today, so I'm just giving welcome and regards. So welcome to the event. It's very exciting. I want to quote one of my former dean and students who talked about the gifts you bring. And already we've seen several gifts today about your talent and your gifts you can share with us all. So I appreciate that, and I welcome you all. My gift today is going to be very brief. So I'm going to move the program along after that welcome and introduce Linda Dorman, talk about the gift that she's given in the past year or so and how this worked out. Linda. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. It's an honor and a pleasure to talk to you about the Dale Dorman I knew. Here are a few facts. Dale grew up in Homer, New York. He was 8 years old when he heard a voice coming from inside of a radio. At that moment, Dale was hooked. He knew that he wanted to be that man doing that job. With his love of radio, laser drive, and determination, he achieved that goal. Uncle Dale's radio career spanned more than 40 years. He worked many gigs from California to Massachusetts, believing in Bill Drake, the top 40 hits, and the clock-style format. He was irreverent, ambitious, and very creative. Every day, he worked at improving his craft. Dale wanted and needed to be noticed and pulled many pranks on and off the air to gain that attention. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1995 and the Massachusetts Broadcasters Hall of Fame in 2010. Dale's TV credits included children's cartoon programming, the Channel 2 auctions, and Creature double feature. Dale loved the radio industry, the fun of radio, the business of radio, and maintaining the integrity of radio. His most prized responsibility was that of being a mentor, and he was tough. Dale expected excellence from himself and from all those around him. Dale proudly spoke about his role as a teacher, stating, "If one of my kids graduated from the School of Dale, they could and would be hired anywhere." Dale was that confident in his skills as a teacher and mentor. He willingly took on the responsibility with the same determination and passion as he did his own radio career. Even after retirement, many former co-workers would call to chat, ask for advice, or to commiserate about the changing radio landscape. So today we're here to continue Dale's legacy. It is my honor to be part of this wonderful conference that provides educational workshops and networking opportunities to students and the community interested in careers in the media. And I'm also able to say that at the awards ceremony in May, the first Dale Dorman Scholarship will be handed out. Thank you. Thank you for spending your time here as a presenter or a listener. I am very grateful for the gifts that you give and share with everyone.
And ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I'd like to bring up the president of our radio club, Brian Richards.
And can I just say, from being a kid during Uncle Dale's reign, there is nothing better on a cold Saturday than Dale Dorman and Creature double feature. Nothing. As Professor Z said, my name is Brian Richards, and I'm the Radio Club president, also the Veterans Club president here at Massasoit. I want to talk to you about a gentleman, Don Action Jackson. He started his radio career at a community college, so just like we did, that's where he started out. He started down in Falmouth, down the Cape. Don began at his high school TV studio and segued to KKL Radio in Cape Cod at the community school. He quickly began his professional radio career working for stations such as 106 WCOD, Z94 in Boston, Power 97 Las Vegas, and Jammin'. Action then landed the job of his lifetime, working in Cleveland's legendary Majic 105.7 afternoons, where I hear they did play some 80s, so it must have been a good channel. A little bit. Okay, good. Majic has been, no doubt, Action's most successful gig, with him acting as a music director and assignment program director under the program director Keith Abrams. Don has also been on air, and he's in air every week for 48 Saturdays and Sundays throughout the country, 48 radio markets. He loves every minute of entertaining Clevelanders. Sorry to hear that. In the past 24 years, gotta love the football channel. But from the community college radio, he's been iHeart's and on iHeart nationwide. Please welcome Don Action Jackson.
It's all right. Wow, I didn't know I had done that much, actually. I'm telling you. First of all, don't laugh at napalm depth. They're going places, okay? They definitely are. Before I start, I have to, especially with Linda Dorman here, I have to tell you how much Dale meant to me growing up in radio. I feel like I owe the woman and their family money because I cannot tell you how much stuff I borrowed from Dale over the years. Okay, outright stole from Dale, actually. And because I was on Cape Cod, and you're in Boston or in Medford, and that is like right at the very edge of where the radio signal will end. And here's me in my 1979 Chevette, before digital, trying to tune in KISS 108 in Boston, which came in much better in the middle of the spring and fall because there were more clouds in the air and the signal would carry further. And here I am trying to listen to Dale on my way into work. Basically, that was preparation for my show on a soft rock radio station, so you can imagine how much they appreciated me imitating some of his stuff. But I will tell you, between that smirk that I used to hear in his voice every single time, waiting to say something that would get him fired, and didn't, most of the time, and you mentioned the cartoons on Channel 56. He would talk, I would come home, this is a long time ago, they would have the cartoons in the afternoon. Casper. He would do that. Every single time he introduced Casper and the Flintstones, and you knew he wanted to say something naughty about Wilma Flintstone, but he didn't. But I used to listen to that, and I knew exactly what he was thinking, because I would hear it, and I knew it was all on the fly, and it was amazing. And the guy actually would do a weather forecast like this, because usually when you do the weather forecast on the radio, it's like, sunny today, cloudy tonight, temperature such as that. Dale would go on, weather for the world's greatest city. Blech. No, that's a real meteorological term. 34, yes. That would be him, and that would be the break. And I'm like, you can do that on the radio? That's how I was taught by Dale. Listening to him, he was teaching me every single day. And that is where the passion came from. That's kind of the theme of what I'm talking about up here is radio passion, as you described it earlier. It's that passion, no matter what. You don't have to have the best or most conventional radio voice in the world. Dale learned that early on, I'm sure. I learned that early on because I don't have a deep resonant voice like my man in the front here. Do-right radio. Look out. But I learned early on it's what you say, not necessarily, not the voice that it comes from. And as they mentioned, I work at Majic 105.7 in Cleveland playing classic hits. We stopped calling them oldies because you tell a Fleetwood Mac or an Eagles fan that their song is an oldie, they want to punch you in the face. I'm not kidding. They actually want to punch you in the face. I don't have the best dental plan. That's the one thing I can say about iHeartRadio. So I don't want to be punched in the face. So we changed the name to Classic Hits. And classic rock has been around for a while, and it seems to go down a little bit better. But I am on in about 50 markets around the country on the weekends as well through the iHeartRadio network. And I never thought that I'd be able to say that. I hoped, but I never thought that was the case. Now, I'm not making Ryan Seacrest money, so I'm not as big of a big shot as some people might think. But I will tell you that it's a beautiful thing, and I would do it for free. I don't tell my bosses that, but that is the passion you have to bring to it every single day that you're doing this. My passion started at 4 years old because I fell in love with music. My first record player I got at 4 years old, and I will tell you, I was obsessed. Nowadays, my mother would take me to Dr. Phil and say, "Can you help this boy?" Because I used to sit there and stare at the records going round and round obsessively. And when I was a little kid at 5 years old and I would be someplace where I couldn't actually listen to music, the adults are talking now, we can't let you put the record player on because that's all I wanted to do any place that I went. I would actually trace the records around on cardboard, create a record out of it by coloring it in black. I would make a little label for it and hum the song to myself with a little stick or something like that, pretending to be that's how obsessed I was with music. And I also wanted to be some sort of a host. I wanted to be Bob Barker. You may remember, some of the older people in the audience may remember, Bob Barker was not on The Price is Right first. He was on an old show called Truth or Consequences. And he was hysterical because it was all about doing stunts and whatnot. And I thought he was the funniest guy in the world on television. And Bob Eubanks on the Newlywed Game and all of that. I wanted to be that guy. And one day I'm sitting in the back of the car listening to a radio station, maybe about 5 or 6 years old, and I'm hearing this guy on the air playing music, playing records. I'd listen to it. It's always around. Radio's always around. You listen to it once, though, and you go, wait, this guy, he's a host. He's talking. He's doing what I want to do. He's playing music. I'm obsessed with music. This is the greatest job in the world. And I was, as everybody said, you said it, Lisa said it, hooked. That's the key. It's better than any drug. It's better than anything. Once you find that passion for whatever it is you want to do in life, there was no stopping me. I was no audio engineer, but I had a little stereo set, and I understood inputs and outputs in 2 seconds and created, they had a junior high school dance, and they had a DJ there. He was going from one record to another with 2 turntables, and I'm like, oh, that's how you do that. And it wasn't like it is now. You go to the music store and you can buy a DJ setup. They didn't have those in the old days, so I went to Radio Shack and bought a mic mixer, teeny little thing like this. And I bought another record player at a garage sale and hooked them up with a little microphone. And wait a minute, my radio station did not have commercials. How do I do this? I had a cassette player. I sat in front of Pro FM in Providence, and I recorded commercials off their radio station, so I actually would have commercials to play during my show. I was committed to being on the radio. I basically created what you have here now, because they didn't have those for 10-year-olds back in the 70s. So I created my own little bedroom radio station. Turns out, I'm not alone. Bedroom radio was actually a term in the business. There were people pretending to be on the radio. I don't know if they were stupid enough to sit in front and record commercials like I did, but there was some level of obsession there. And I will tell you, I wanted to be on the radio. I couldn't wait to be on the radio. And I found out that the high school, Falmouth High School, where I went to school on the Cape, had a radio station. Okay, that's cool. Can't wait to get there. They actually had the high school where the junior high school eventually was. High school moved to another building. They had built another building for that. But they said, yes, there was a radio station here. Okay, great. I'll just have to wait another couple of years. I get there. They converted it to a TV station. So what did I do? I was on TV for 4 years because I wanted to be as close to it as possible. And I figure, well, radio must be a breeze if, once I get done with television. It's just, TV without the pictures, right? I was around equipment. I learned how to actually respect equipment, use equipment, do things. I was the guy that did a lot of editing and a lot of TV production and such. Yes, I did some on-camera work, but after I broke a couple of the tubes with this face that's made for radio, they said, you're better off behind the scenes. So I did more of that. But I did anything that I could to be around it. And then finally, I graduated from high school, barely, and I went to, I heard about Cape Cod Community College, And I said, well, okay, they've got a great radio station there. And I took any course that would allow me to get in. I didn't care what the course was. I just wanted to be in the radio studio. And I did. And I very carefully, since school was not my thing, since I barely graduated, took a leave of absence. But it was a community radio station. So it was a volunteer radio station that was attached to the college, but there weren't enough people to actually fill out all the shifts. So I still could work on the community college radio station. And it was an alternative station during the week, but on the weekends they did, and at night they would do these specialty shows. And so I was one of the first people to play hip-hop music on Cape Cod because I was working at the local roller rink. And that's what everybody was dancing to. It was early days, it was R&B, but then it had morphed into hip-hop stuff and breakdancing and everything. I learned how to program because I would listen to all the cool music on KISS in Boston and check out the R&B charts, and you couldn't get all that stuff on Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Wonder why? But I would drive, or I would take the bus to Boston and go to all the Boston record stores and purge and grab and bring back a whole bunch of stuff. Looked like an idiot going on the bus like this, holding all these records to bring them back and play them on my radio show. So I was basically learning how to program by doing that because I picked out the hottest stuff that people didn't even hear yet. And that was the most beautiful thing. I helped create shout-outs because we weren't calling them that then. But I said hi to people on the radio, and they got them hooked. They will listen to you for life if you mention them on the radio. And if we had a phone bank, we'd have played them back. But that's how little budget they had there. But we made it a point to say hi to everybody. We had lists of people saying hi to them. We'd do slow jams, and then we would do the lover stuff as well. Try to bring my voice down a little bit for that. And I realized that sensation, because I remember hearing Dale say once in an interview that the cool thing that he always got out of radio is, I say it here, and it comes out like 40 miles away, right? And when you're on a college radio station that's like, 300 some watts, okay, you're getting over a little bit, but you're not really able to hear yourself. You don't record the show, you don't hear it. I'm driving around summertime, people with their windows down, cassettes. I'm hearing the songs that I'm playing on the cassettes, and then I hear my voice on there. Hey, it's Don, and my radio name on the Cape was Don Gaston. That's my real last name. I didn't use Action Jackson until later. Don Gaston, blah, blah. They cut it off because they don't want to hear the DJ. But I heard myself for like 2 seconds. And I'm like, yes, he recorded my show. It's on his cassette. He's playing it this way. He's in the middle of the week. I got that first taste of fame in my head, of success. Somebody was listening to my show. Someone was paying attention to what I was doing. They were entertained enough to actually record it and play it back during the week. Again, I was hooked even further. And I continued to work at KKL and made my demo tape and wanted to actually get paid for it eventually and took it over to WCOD on Cape Cod and Hyannis. And there's this kid, about 19 or so, tapping on the window. I went after hours because I didn't realize that, the station wasn't open 24/7, that they had an office that shut at 5 o'clock. So the guy that was on in the afternoon and the guy that was on at night, they were switching shifts, and I'm tap, tap, tap on the window. And they see me outside because it's like a big house and it's a big, big windows in the studio because you see right out into the up front porch. And the guy said, come back around, because it basically was built like a house, this thing. I go around to the back door and I said, yeah, hi, I wanted to drop my demo tape off, because I could be on the radio with the best voice in the world. Can I please bring? Well, they said, the guy, the program director is not here, but, we'll make sure he gets the tape. Thank you very much, appreciate it. I've never been in a real radio station before. Oh, you want to come in? They brought me in, and they talked to me for about 45 minutes. Where are you from? What made you want to get into radio? What are you doing over at the college? These two guys, Charlie Henry was the afternoon guy, and the night guy, I don't remember his name anymore. His name was Doug something. They talked to me for 45 minutes, and that was important to me. These guys that were in the big time, they were on the radio. They cared about what I went home feeling real good about myself that day. And I got a call, and they said, listen, you're still fairly new at this and whatnot. We don't know if we have a place for you just yet, but you sound like you do a pretty good job running that board. we need an engineer to actually run the board for the remotes that we do. And on the Cape, it wasn't like they were doing remotes because, it was a sales thing where they were making money. They would do remotes from the lighthouse. And they just say, hey, it's summer, and they would just hang out in the lighthouse. I wish they did more of that nowadays. They don't do that anymore. But they were always out on remote somewhere, and we need somebody reliable back at the studio. And I learned so much doing that. I was on doing that for 6 months. Didn't crack the microphone one time. I was just there for them. But that was the best experience because I'll tell you, I learned so much. They would be chatting with people. You can hear them in cue before they go on the air. You can hear them talking to everybody around them. And then all of a sudden, like a minute before, they would get quiet. And then they would tell me to turn them up. And I learned that everybody wanted to be cued in differently. You learned that everybody's got different styles. And I asked Susan Hassett, who was our midday person, I said, how come everybody gets quiet just before they go on the air? And she says, I'm thinking about what I want to say. And as weird as it sounds, I was surprised by that. Oh, I thought people just open up the microphone and start talking. But she actually wanted to know where she was going to go with that break and how she was going to talk about it. Another learning point. I ended up getting a phone call from Ray Brown, the program director, on the weekend, one weekend, and he says, listen, the oldies guy that does the afternoon show on Saturdays, his wife just went into labor. And this is last minute. We don't have anybody to fill in. You've been making your demo tapes, and you've been sounding better. Would you like to go on the air and do the afternoon on Saturday? Yeah, sure, I can do that. Sure, no problem. What time? 2 to 7? Yeah, just do the basics. Don't try to do too much. Okay. I'm living at home still. I get off the phone, hang off the phone and go, Ma! Oh, my God! I go running up the stairs. I cannot believe I'm going to be on the radio tomorrow, calling everybody that I know. You got to listen tomorrow. I'm going to be on the radio. You can't believe it. I could not believe. I don't yell at the top of my lungs that often. But I was so excited to be on the radio. It was the biggest thrill that he just called me. So I went in the station to go to do my shift, and I bonded with one guy, Greg Daniels, who's actually still on the air in Boston. He was the one that was closest to my age. Everybody there was a little older, and I was a little out of my element working for a soft rock older station. But he was close to me, and I said, listen, I'm going on doing my first shift. Can you give me some advice? He said, sure. Just be yourself. Don't take, be careful not to try to do too much. And you should know this. You're going to be on the air in the afternoon on Saturday in the middle of summertime on Cape Cod, Massachusetts, where everybody's around. Next to Morning Drive, that's the most listened to time of day with the most people listening to you. Good luck. Have a good show. And that was him. Needless to say, I flubbed my way through the first ID a little bit, but I actually got through it, and I didn't die. I didn't have a heart attack. And I ended up there for about 5 years, as eventually from overnights to nights, and I ended up being the music director there. I was actually one of the first people to test music scheduling software, which is now standard in the industry. Then they let me go. I got fired for the first time because they were trying to take the station into an older direction. It's easy. You can get fired for things you didn't do. I'd have felt better if it was because I accidentally said the F word on the air, then it would have been a reason for it, but there wasn't. They actually just let me go, and I said, okay. But I got a phone call from somebody who listened to me a lot, J.R. Randall, over at Cape 104. He said, you're one of the best top 40 station DJs on a soft rock station. We'd love to have you come over to Cape 104 and do the late night show, because we have an overnight guy that's inviting 16-year-old girls back to the studios, and we're really sick of their parents calling us. So if you can manage not to do that, we'd love to have you. Sure, I can do that. Yeah, sure, no problem. And we'll split the show up so that you do 10 to 2, and we got this girl named Lisa Z who's going to do 2 to 6 in the morning. So she did that. I was on the air there for about a year, worked in Boston part-time at the same time, but I was never going to end up full-time in Boston because, as you well know, you got to get run over by a bus to give up the air shift. No one quits their job in Boston because it's such a great place to work. And I knew that wasn't going to happen, so unfortunately it didn't work out there. I found myself in Vegas for 3 years. I've learned quickly that Vegas isn't a radio town because it is transient. I met maybe only a few people there the entire time that I was there that actually lived their lives there. And you want to be in a place that's a radio city, that's a radio town, that's a career, if you're doing what we're doing. And so after 3 years, that didn't end up working out for me, but I got a phone call from that same guy that hired me at Cape 104, J.R. Randall. He was on the air in the morning there, and they needed a night guy. So he said, "Can you pack up and be here?" I said, "Yeah." He was in Cleveland, and he was working at Jammin' 92. I got packed up, calls me the next day. "Oh, they found a night guy that sounds a little bit more like what they're looking for." Oh. Then I get a phone call the next day. Overnights just became available. So now, do I want to go back to overnights? 3 or 4 steps backwards. He said, we're upping the talent pool. You're not going to be there forever. And I took a big risk. And this is a lesson. Because it was a radio city. And it wasn't Boston. It wasn't my hometown. But it was a place I could grow. And I said, I'll give it a shot. So I went. I did overnights. I did the mix show on the weekends because I used to do all the club stuff. And within 6 months, I was music director, and I was doing middays. They had new owners. I got fired, and I got hired back, and I ended up doing nights. And that was for 5 years. I was doing nights, and I'll tell you, to this day, I still get people who are listening to me playing Spice Girls records and Right Said Fred saying, "Hey, I used to listen to you all the time on the Big 9 at 9 Countdown. We used to get on there all the time with you." This, 20-some years later, I started there 26 years ago. That's what you look for. You look for a full career. You look for someplace where you can grow and build a legacy if you're doing radio. And I wasn't sure if I was going to stay there, but because it was that kind of a city, because it was that kind of, I don't know. I know that when I started there, I knew that I was going to be there for a long time. I was there. They changed format a couple of times. And then I got a phone call from Majic 105.7, Dave Popovich, who had heard the format they switched it to. They did Jammin' Oldies for a little while, playing the old disco and R&B stuff. And they fired us because they decided they were going to change the format to rock. And they said, "Listen, can you come over here and be a Jammin' Oldies consultant for a weekend? We're going to do a Jammin' Oldies weekend, and you get to say goodbye to all the people you didn't get to say goodbye to before. It'll be fun." I did it. They loved it so much, they said, "Hey, come back and do weekends." I did weekends. Afternoons became available. I've been doing afternoon drive there for the last 18 years. And it is the best decision that I ever made. And I will tell you that the one thing that runs through all of that, because I'm not the best guy to ever crack a microphone. I'm not the worst, but the thing, I kept getting phone calls from people because they heard the passion in my voice when I was on the air. And that is what I want to pass on to you. And I learned a few things, and then I got to get going because we have other people that need to talk to you today. But first of all, whatever it is you're doing, whether it's radio, television, a web series, whatever it is, make sure your passion comes through with whatever it is you do. Do whatever you have to. Every time you cut a segment, every time you go on camera to do that sports report, every single time you open the microphone like I or Dale did, make sure that you're not short-selling your audience. Make sure you are not phoning it in, because you never know who will be listening at any given point. And your audience deserves that from you every single day. Even if you're sick, they don't care. They like you. Go in there and give it 100% anyway. Know your boss. Give them as much of what they want as possible, even if it goes against what you think should be the case. Still give them you, but do what that boss wants. It's how you will stay employed. People with egos get fired fairly quickly, first chance they get, because nobody wants to deal with that. Ego should be for positive things. I'm good at this, fine, but I also have to work for somebody, and you have to balance the two always. Be willing to do anything to get your foot in the door. If you want to be on the air, but they have a job for you in promotions, take it, because you'll be in the house, and you'll be around the people that you want to talk to. to maybe eventually get on the air. I know a woman who's actually been there for like 10 years at Majic. She finally got on the air a little while ago, part-time. She's finally doing that. But she's still doing the promotions thing. Remember, you have the best job in the world. I can't tell you how many people I talk to who are bitching about, I got to cut another commercial, and my boss can't handle them today. And I said, you know what? Pizza Hut is always looking for more drivers. I am telling you right now. There's always, and they put money in your hand every single day, by the way. Trust me, you're playing Elton John songs for a living. You have the best job in the world. Or if it's somebody younger, you're playing Cardi B records for a living. Making money moves. That's right. You are the luckiest person in the world. I have never worked a day in my life. I have never worked a day in my life. You're nodding your head, and I know why. I heard, of all people, George Burns. Anybody in the room know who George Burns is? Very old comedian, died at 100 years old. I saw him on Donahue. That's the old Oprah. He was on there, and they were talking to him, did an hour-long interview with him. And he said, somebody asked him about, the job and how it ever gets tiring for him, and once he wants to retire, and he said, I'm never retiring. He said, fall in love with what you do. You will never work a day in your life. I have kept that as my model for my entire career. I will continue to do this. It's kind of bittersweet now because I saw in that interview with Dale, or actually, they asked him if he wanted to retire, and he said no. It didn't quite work out that way, but he said, basically, I want to talk up that last record, shut the mic off, and in front of the microphone. That's how passionate he was. That's how passionate I am for this. And like I said, it applies to anything that you're doing. Whether you're doing a web series, it better be as exciting as the slow-mo guys or the Dude Perfect people. Put that kind of energy and attitude behind it. The TV production. If you get a job getting coffee for Steven Spielberg, do it. Because you'll learn so much from doing that. Have a great conference today. Make sure that whatever it is, there's an amount of passion that goes into it. And good luck, everybody. And I'll be around. I'd love to talk to you today. Have a good day.
And ladies and gentlemen, there's going to be, after this, we break out into different sessions, and some of them are hand